Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, Building an AI-First RevOps Team from Adoption to Implementation. I'm Alicia, and I will be one of your hosts today. Later, we'll be joined by Leah, who will help moderate the questions that come in, so please send those in as they come up. We want you to have access to these amazing thought leaders and get your questions answered in real time. Now, I want to make sure that everyone is on the same page for housekeeping items. This is kind of standard webinar operating procedure. So first, this is being recorded. I know this will probably be asked a few times, but it is being recorded. A recording will be sent out in 2 to 3 business days, but you can also re-access if you want to watch this content right away with the link that you joined us with today. We'll also time it, like I mentioned, for Q&A at the end of the presentation, but send your questions as they come in or send things into the chat. We want to make this fun for everyone, so please be engaged and ask what comes to mind for these amazing speakers that will introduce themselves shortly. Also, we recommend using Google Chrome for streaming. It's just a better user experience. And if you encounter any technical issues, try refreshing is my always go-to and simple basic hack, or closing out and then coming back in. Now, our agenda for today, we'll have our speakers introduce themselves, go over their backgrounds and their expertise and what they are going to, and why they're here today, obviously. And then we're going to go through kind of the tech stack and AI tools conversation, people and adoption, processes and scaling, and live Q&A. Now, before we dive into a few polls and our main discussion and Q&A AMA for today, we're going to have our speakers introduce themselves. And with that, I will pass it over to Tessa first.
All right. Thank you so much. Excited to be here and talking to all of you. My name is Tessa Whittaker. I'm the VP of Revenue Operations at ZoomInfo. I've been at ZoomInfo for almost 3 years. It's been such an incredible experience. And previously, I was at Salesforce for almost a better part of a decade, with my last role being on the Tableau side post-acquisition. Based in Miami, Florida, and just really excited to be here to talk to all of you today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tessa. And Lindsay.
Hi, everyone. I'm really excited to be here as well. I'm from San Diego, California. I've been at Zapier for 5 years now, and I lead the RevOps function, which is across marketing, sales, customer success, and includes all things sales enablement, insights, analytics, tooling, and technology. My background, I actually started in marketing, and demand gen was my focus for many years, but always just loved the process of taking the big creative ideas and turning them into execution and scalable strategies. So I made that transition several years back. So happy to be here and chat with all of you.
And Lindsay, I think you said you came from the marketing side. So yeah. We talked about this, I guess it was just only a few days ago. I came over from the sales side and we were chatting about just like the differences of perspective but finding our way into RevOps. So I think it'll be an incredible discussion and excited to chat more with you.
Me too.
I love both sides of the coin, the revenue team and the different perspectives too. All right, we're going to launch just a couple polls just to get to know the audience a bit better, you all, and see where everyone comes from. So I'm going the first one, and I'll give everyone about 20 seconds to answer. What best describes your role? And of course, there's some redundancies and overlaps, so choose whatever applies best to you. First, operations, which would make sense considering the intro we just had. For RevOps, marketing ops, sales ops, customer success operations. In that lane, go-to-market team. So again, higher level, but in line with what we're talking about today. For marketing, sales, customer success, it could be any role. I'm curious to see what people say here. Executive, whether you're a director, VP, SVP, EVP, or C-suite, or some other title in between. We know there's many. And then other. Feel free, if you are selecting other, to send it into the chat just to let us know who you are, and it will be really curious to see what you think of today's content. All right, I'll submit my vote, and then All right. So it looks like our audience here is about 44% ops, which makes perfect sense considering the topic today. And then 30% of the audience is go-to-market team, marketing, sales, customer success. So quite a cool mixture here of different groups of people. And now one more poll question before we dive into our conversation for today. Uh, what industry do you work in? Just this is helpful for us to know what context to provide or who we're talking to. And again, I give about 20 seconds to answer. Are you in technology or SaaS, media, entertainment, retail, e-commerce, government, nonprofit, other? I didn't want to add every possible thing, but whatever best applies. And of course, there's some overlap here, but it's always super helpful to know where everyone's coming from. All right, we'll give about 5 more seconds and then let's see here. All right, so about half the audience, technology, SaaS, not surprising considering who we have speaking today. And then, 44% other. Again, feel free to send that into the chat and let us know where you all work. And with that, I want to make one quick announcement before we dive into the highlights of today, which will be the conversation between Lindsay and Tessa. If you like this topic, we do have a hands-on workshop for RevOps, Build Your First AI Agent with Zapier on Thursday, October 15th. You can see the little bit.ly link down there below or scan the QR code. It's going to be really great. We have our very own Lena and Katie, and they'll help you build your very first AI agent. And that is, if you can't click on here, you can always go to the links section of the portal right below on your screen, and you'll be able to register that way as well. I will promote that, and you can see it this way, so you can click a little easier if you don't want to get your cell phone out. All right, now with that, we're going to dive into the conversation and start with our tech stack and AI tools portion of the show. Building the foundation. So why can't we just jump into AI tools? And I will let Tessa lead this part.
Yeah, it's funny. I would say one of the number one things I get asked all the time is just really, where do I start with AI? And I think, we're now at this point for the most part that there's this common knowledge that you really can't build AI on top of bad data, right? So it's that garbage in, garbage out. We've been hearing quite a bit about that. And so, right now, a lot of people's system of record, or historically, the system of record has been the CRM. And the problem with that is our CRM data is old, it's outdated, and it's not really conducive for reps to actually execute off of. And so when you think about how am I going to layer AI into the go-to-market, really it's how do I first start with that actual data foundation? And if your system of record or your main source of data is that CRM, you're really in a lot of trouble because you're not going to have the data you need in order to have accurate AI. And so I think that one thing that we have to start with is really what is our data foundation? What is our system of record? And what does it mean if it's not CRM anymore?
Absolutely. And Lindsay, would you like to?
Yeah, no, I just agree with all of what Tessa said. I think it's so important to build those data foundations. And for a lot of us, like that data can live in a lot of different places. So if you're not clear on what data you even need about customers in order for your AI outputs to be successful, that's probably the first step. The other thing I will caveat, so like we jumped into experimenting with AI on my RevOps team without the foundations. Like we just jumped in, we built as many AI powered automations and agents that came to mind. And that was really okay, I would say, like in the beginning to like get our feet wet and understand, like build the fluency. But in order to like really have these really powerful AI use cases that are driving substantial impact for your business, you have to do the foundations in parallel. Yeah, I'm curious your take on that, Tessa, and like how y'all have approached that.
Well, I think it's two different things. So what
Mhm.
you said was like actually getting your people to think AI first. And then there's how do you build on top of, a virtual data layer or your system of record to build out AI solutions at scale. And I think that I think about those in two different ways. The only way we're ever going to get our RevOps teams thinking AI first, using AI, really getting creative with AI is if they start using it. You can't get creative about what is the art of the possible until you really get your hands dirty and you start building an agent. So I think that is the right approach. Like, I don't think there's any wrong approach in starting to get your team hands on with actual building of those agents or trying to come up with solutions, even if you realize, okay, like maybe we're going to need a stronger data foundation or figure out how we have a better foundation to build on top of. But actually getting people hands on is the most important thing. I've been talking about this a lot when I was trying to get my teams to start thinking AI first. I feel like I made every mistake. It was like, guys, if you don't start using AI, like in a year as RevOps professionals, we're not going to have jobs. Like, what does that mean to anyone? Where do I start? How do I start using AI? And then there's, okay, we're going to gamify it, take these learnings, courses, read this book, do these things. And like, put yourself into a raffle. Like, that obviously didn't work either. It wasn't until we gave them the infrastructure to build agents, to get creative, to actually trying to start solving problems, did they start thinking AI first. So if I'm talking to a group of RevOps folks, I wouldn't say like, hey, like focus on data for the next 6 months and then start focusing on AI. Like, no, play around with it. But there's a very different, it's very different to have like AI agents that you're building for your internal use cases and building an AI agent that's going to sit into your lead to opportunity or opportunity to contract or quote to cash process that the business is meant to execute on top of, right? That's a very different thing. And so I think, still going back to like the fundamentals, which is you have to have, there's several steps you have to take until you get to a point where you can start building out AI workflows, but absolutely you should have your team in AI as quickly as possible.
Totally.
And I would love to hear your perspective here. What does it look like to actually have your data infrastructure in a good place that you could continue to build off of? Both of you mentioned that you kind of have to dive in and just start, but what does that look like in practice, or at Zapier or at ZoomInfo, where your data infrastructure is strong enough that you know that you're building off solid data that is, and that you have good data hygiene, all the important things when it comes to the tediousness sometimes that can be data management.
Yeah. You want to go first, Tessa?
No, Lindsay, go ahead.
Okay. I think you have to have a strong point of view in terms of the data that you need complete. So you kind of have to look at like, well, what's all the data about our customers that we need in order to make sure that they're served in the right way. So that's step one, I think, understanding what you need. And then it's having a strategy for filling in that data, your enrichment strategy. How are you going to make sure that data in your CRM is consistent and complete, and having a plan to start building that foundation, because it might be really messy, it might not be. And I think that's different for different companies, but sort of just having a plan around that. But Tessa, I'm curious to hear how y'all approach it.
Yeah, no, I think, I feel like I sound sometimes like a broken record on the system of record cannot be CRM. But like, I think that like step one, if that is your system of record, then there's obviously a lot of work that you need to do, because it's really just a single pane of glass. You have, you're relying, if you don't have a data strategy, on folks in actually putting data in the CRM, right? Which I think a recent study said like 5% of reps are actually using their CRM to run their businesses. But really what I think about is what is that virtual data layer, your data foundation, where you have both the first party and that third party data that's coming in to give yourself a really full 360 view of your customer, your total addressable market, the interactions that are happening, and making sure that you have an enrichment strategy. It's funny, I feel like there was this trend or this kind of explosion in RevOps over the past few years where we went out and we bought kind of a tool for everything. And so whether you were in lead opportunity to contract, again, like quote to cash, you had all of these like point solutions that were meant to help with us executing across of our processes and having automation into our systems. And the problem is none of those systems were actually talking to each other, or maybe they were pushing in or pushing out to some extent. But when I think about really data readiness, it's having that full, 360, having all the different, like I said, first party, third party, your CRM data, all coming together into this, virtual data layer that is getting enriched, that does have not just your customer data, but your total addressable market, and has the ability for you to drive actions off of. And so that's what I think about data readiness. And, I think we all are still figuring that out. And I'm sure if any RevOps person that's on this, goes through CRM right now and just like looks up Cisco, they probably have 15 Ciscos. So so I think figuring out how do you continue to pull in all of that data, conversational intelligence, like I said, your CRM data, your third-party data, the enrichment strategy, and making sure you have as much accuracy as possible. Because if you have some sort of AI workflow that's supposed to go out and execute it against Cisco, it's not going to know where to start.
Perfect. And this kind of leads into something that I know, Lindsay, we've talked about at Zapier, and I've heard you speak about before, about knowing when you're ready for AI. We've kind of set the stage here when it comes to talking about data and how you can start to approach it and the mindset. I'd love to hear your thoughts on where is your foundation solid enough and where to start, and just based on what the strategic approach that we've talked about, and then get Tessa's thoughts too.
Yeah, totally. So I think the first thing that we did here at Zapier was kind of jumping on like low effort, quick wins, like low hanging fruit. Like, for example, let's use AI to generate a call prep guide for our reps. Or let's use AI to classify leads into segments. So they were like quick, low hanging, a good way to figure out like what does AI excel at? And we really found it was extracting insights from a large data set, summarizing and classifying information, and writing and generating content. So those were areas that through those like low-hanging quick wins, we were able to like kind of see, okay, these are the patterns of where it's really successful for us. But then we started to move into, okay, what are the higher impact things that we could do that sort of take that to the next level? So you're not just generating the call prep guide, but you're also evaluating how the rep did on the call and generating the next steps for them for after the call and the email. And so building onto that through experiments. So starting to form a point of view about how those wins ladder up into true business impact. And now where we are is like, well, how do we actually rethink the way work gets done? Because before we were just, let's improve processes that exist today. Let's make them better, more efficient. And so now that's sort of opened us up to like, well, what are the really high impact things and what are the foundations that we need to get there? And I think that's kind of what ties back to those data foundations as well, because how do you govern all of this? How do you put in the right guardrails? How do you make sure that these workflows aren't decaying and you're really treating them like a product? So that's sort of like the evolution, and what this slide represents for us is like how we went about figuring that out.
Do you want to add anything, Tessa?
It's funny. I think a lot of people started in similar spots, which is pulling in, we really started with the whole idea of account AI, which is built into our Copilot product, which is how much time have sellers historically taken at the beginning of the year when there's a handoff of accounts to go in and research everything about those accounts and understand the historical context of those accounts and understand the different conversations that have been had at those accounts and who are the champions and who are the people they need to talk to and what are the strategic priorities, and how do you pull in all of that from, not just CRM notes, but conversational intelligence, et cetera, third-party data about their earnings calls, whatever, to give them this AI account summary to set them up for success right away without this need for them to go and do all this research. So I feel like that makes total sense. And I think a lot of people started in that similar place, which is how do we save people time by summarizing all of this data that's out there that they had to maybe go search for before. So, before we even touch any sort of workflows or signal to action, just on how do we give them this information in a really simplified way that allows them to execute faster, that, makes them more efficient and productive in what they're meant to do, just from even, their territory planning exercises. And then I think, something you said, Lindsay, it's so interesting is then there's like kind of this evolution of, okay, now how do we build out AI workflows an actual part of their process? But similar, and I had this conversation yesterday with my enablement lead, was similar to how you can't build AI on top of bad data. You can't build out AI workflows on top of bad process. And so you actually have to go back to the drawing board and say, all right, in the age of AI, when there doesn't need to be as many manual steps, does the process we have before actually be the process we have going forward? And so, yes, you need to have your data foundation, but then you need to go through a re-architecture of saying, building AI on top of bad process will still be a bad process. What should be the new process? What does that architecture look like if you're leveraging AI? And are there parts that even maybe were automated that people had to be involved in before that you can maybe pull them off of altogether? And where do you actually need to have people very focused? And how do you create a process leveraging AI workflows that support that? And then how do you monitor that? How do you make sure that there is accuracy and then that it's continuing to work as it should? But really taking a step back and thinking about AI workflows like a product manager and really re-architecting how we did things before.
I love that. Sorry, I just think that's such an interesting, I hadn't thought of it that way before, about how you're actually, when you're really embedding AI into these more transformational use cases, you're totally reinventing the process. And so I think a lot of people probably tend to just focus on their existing process and how do I make it better? But I think that that's a really interesting way of approaching.
And I'll say, like, we're not to hot takes yet, but here's my hot take on this. I've been thinking a lot about this for the last few days. It's been very top of mind, which is essentially so many folks are going out, to your point, and saying, okay, if I put out AI on top of this, or help AI, build AI into this workflow, or add AI to this process, that all of a sudden you're going to get this, you're going to have this big business impact. And I think it was like a month ago or so, MIT came out with this study that said like 95% of AI efforts right now are not driving any sort of incremental impact to the business. 95%. And I think it's because people are building on top of what's existing because they're not sure where to start, opposed to re-architecting. And I think that when we start re-architecture, that's when we're going to start seeing that AI impact. But we have to get out of this thought of you can just pile AI on top of existing data and process, and all of a sudden you're going to have impact.
Totally. You might save some time, but
maybe, but it's not making an impact because I don't know, human behavior. And I'm not going to try to pretend that I'm any sort of psychologist, but if you're getting a bunch of time back to reps because you're making it easier for them to do things that they could do that they did before that took them longer, are they reinvesting all that time back into the business?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, totally.
This is such a great conversation. If you can see, tons of people agree and are right there with y'all. We're going to go into our next kind of theme, but first just wanted to do another quick little poll to see where everyone's at with us. Where is your company in its AI journey? Are you exploring, researching AI, but haven't implemented anything yet? Experimenting, testing AI tools with small pilots or specific teams? Implementing, actively rolling out AI across multiple workflows and teams, or optimizing? AI is embedded in operations, now refining and scaling. Give everyone a few seconds to answer, and we'll go into our next topic of processes and scaling. All right. Let's see where everyone Okay, so 49% experimenting, testing AI tools with small pilots in specific teams, 26% implementing, actively rolling out AI across multiple workflows, and then 20% or 18% exploring. So a lot of different parts of the curve, but experimenting, I think, is where it seems the most people are at this point. All right, now we're going to go to the big one, which is people and adoption. So, with that, what does AI powered RevOps look like in practice at your organizations? And Tessa, do you want to start?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so it's interesting. We had, at the beginning of the year, we started talking about like, what does it mean to be AI first in RevOps? Or what does it mean to really have this AI first mindset? And I know a lot of people, a lot of teams immediately focused on go to market. Okay, if we're going to be AI first, what are we doing in the go to market to drive more AI? Equally important. But one of the things that we also did was really held up a mirror and said, if we're going to be re-architecting the go-to-market, to be executing AI first across our processes and our systems, how are we going to support that? Also executing AI first as a RevOps organization. Because if you're not set up to execute as fast as the go-to-market that you're re-architecting, how are you going to keep up with the speed of change? And so we went through this process where we actually listed, like we went through a manual process of saying, what is every single step or thing that we need to execute on as RevOps from point A to Z that we do every day to support the business? What is our end-to-end process as a RevOps professional? And then on top of that, what are the things that we do outside of that end-to-end process from an operational cadence or communication cadence or anything else that we have to do that is manual? And we went through and we actually stack ranked it based on how much time all of these things took us to do, and then figured out, okay, level of complexity, how do we think that we could actually automate this? And so we went through, we stack ranked it, we went through like a P1 through P3, what are the most important things to do, and built out a roadmap of how are we going to completely drive AI first execution model into how we internally as a RevOps organization are supporting the business. And so one of the things that I think is really exciting that we've been spending a ton of time on is this idea of an intake agent. And I could probably talk for 3 webinars about the evolution of this. So I will keep it high level, but always happy to talk about this in follow-ups. Is that we knew that one of the most time consuming for RevOps professionals is the intake process, where you have someone from sales or an executive or anyone really in the business coming to you and asking you for support on something. And the person coming to you and putting time on your calendar might bring 2 or 3 other people, and then you're bringing someone else because maybe you're not sure if you have all the context, and you go into a call where you're meant to be gathering the requirements. But the business actually isn't 100% sure what they want, and they're trying to solution. They're not actually talking about what they're trying to achieve, which, if you're a RevOps professional, you've been in those situations before. And you realize quite quickly you need several follow-up calls. And then maybe you write you write your requirements document and you write some sort of user story. And then you need to go to your Jira if you're using Jira and update it there. And then you're meeting with your system admin, and then there's things missing from the user story. And then you need to go back to the business. And something that might be a simple enhancement is taking hours and hours and hours of time. And so we actually started with an intake agent that in a conversation, the business can start answering questions, that gathers those requirements and builds that first requirements document that then builds out a user story that integrates directly into Jira. And yes, do we still need to check it? Yes, are there follow-ups needed? Yes, if our CRO or CEO wants something, we're not going to send him to a bot. But there is quite a bit of work that this accounts for. And that's really where we started. And now we're experimenting with things like, hey, if we know the company priorities, the KPIs we're trying to impact, our CRO priorities, the top goals of the executives, we can actually build that logic in. So during intake, during the requirements gathering, during that user story building directly into Jira, we can actually get a prioritization score that's objective. That's not just the person that's shouting the loudest. So we have the ability to start really running kind of our first level of Scrum based on what's the most important in a very objective way, based on the KPIs and metrics we're trying to hit as a business. And so that has been kind of where we started. which has been incredibly impactful.
I'm obsessed with that use case. We actually don't, we've kind of toyed around with some version of like AI in our intake process, but I like the way that you totally rethought, like, does a human need to be in these conversations? And that is just huge leverage for RevOps. I love that use case.
Well, it's like a barrier to entry. That senior director that wants you to run that project, he doesn't actually know what he's asking for. He's going to have to really think about it in that conversation with that bot.
Yeah, it's like, I'm going to let the bot be frustrated with you. That's awesome. Very cool. We started this, maybe I'll start with this slide here that Alicia just popped up. So this is a slide that we put together internally as an organization at Zapier to help to build a framework around what AI fluency looks like within our org and what we expect from employees in terms of how they think about and apply AI. And so this allowed us to kind of like benchmark where we were and set really clear goals for like what is truly transformative AI fluency, where you're really thinking about completely shifting the way that we work. I also want to just give an example too, similar to Tessa's, in terms of how we started moving in the direction of like really rethinking processes altogether. For us, one of the trickiest things is Zapier, a lot of our deals can be very high velocity. So things happen very fast and the customer can move through the life cycle very quickly. It's also not linear for us. So we do have a lot of handoffs across teams and across tools that as a RevOps team, it's been pretty difficult for us to just make that really seamless for the customer. So that was something as a RevOps team we wanted to be really focused on, was like helping with that context switching for our teams internally and making sure that customers have this really seamless experience. And one of the projects that I want to highlight is Sarah on my team who leads customer success operations. One of the challenges that we had was around renewals specifically, and knowing like how to approach a customer renewal conversation, seeing as that we're a very horizontal business. Our customers can be, all using Zapier for all kinds of different use cases. So she built this renewal agent that what it does is it looks at that 360 view of the customer, like what's all the things going on with them. And it actually progresses the customer through an agent where it evaluates, well, what type of a renewal conversation should we have with this customer? And what are the key things we want to dive deep on with the customer in a conversation? And it actually generates the prep materials for the salesperson working that renewal. It generates the slide deck for the conversation. And so we took the approach of like, what are like the trickiest customer life cycle stages that we were struggling with from an internal standpoint of like giving that customer really strong experience. And so that was how we like kind of prioritized across the customer journey to start. So I just wanted to highlight that. I think that use case really helped us build fluency around like the importance of context around your customers in order for our customer facing teams to like be really successful. Tessa, I feel like we could go on and on and on. Alicia, you're pushing us to the spicy takes.
Yeah, we actually got so many great questions, and you guys, this has been such an awesome conversation. I wanted to get us to the hot spicy takes for the AMA, and we'll keep this kind of rapid fire, and I'm going to hop off and let you two go through these questions, and then we'll have some time for Q&A at the end. But this has been so awesome, so I'm going to let you take it from here, Lindsay and Tessa, and then we'll go to your live Q&A.
Okay, cool. I did not prep answers to these questions, so we will see what we get. Tessa, I'll let you go first here, but this first question is, what's the AI shiny object that your GTM org chased, and what painful lesson did you learn?
Oh gosh. I mean, maybe not this exact question, but I would say like the pain that I saw in the beginning was the chasing of like very decentralized chasing for like every solution, which is like everyone going out and trying to find their own AI shiny object. which was one, like a prioritization nightmare, because if anyone in the go-to-market finds an AI solution, they have to go through RevOps for any sort of POC or integration. And then really just like people, all these different people using all these different things without there being any sort of centralization that we could see what was working or not. I would say that was like at the beginning of everyone's trying to do everything and you're not really seeing any impact at all. And so I think the lesson that I've learned is it's really important that everyone has their ability to build with AI and experiment with AI, but being able to have the lens and centralized view of what is working, what's not working. And so we built our own ZoomInfo chat internally that has our own integrations and has our own data. It's very safe for people to use. And then an agent builder on top of that, so that anyone at the company can build an agent. But now it's all public and you can see what are the agents people are using, what are the agents people aren't using, what are the ideas that people are coming up with. And it's like this crowdsourcing of innovation, except everyone has visibility into it. And I think that has been a big unlock of just really being able to centrally manage all the experimentation, as an example, versus having, thousands of people doing 1,000 different things. And we have no idea at all what's working, what's not working.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I think I was going to say something really similar. The first like AI shiny object problem we had was the same thing, like everybody just going and building their own thing with different data sources and not really having an ability to like share and learn from each other. So that's really cool. And that's something that we're working on too, is like having that standard data layer that then you can set the guardrails so that people can build what they need.
100%.
That's cool. All right. Which overhyped AI trend do you think is total BS? And which one do you suspect will flip your go-to-market model upside down?
You go first on this one.
I think, I guess the one right now is I still feel like having human to human interaction is really important for customer relationships. So the fact that like we're going to have AI just totally like do all of the qualification or like do these customer calls and outreach to customers totally autonomously. Like I value human connection and maybe that's just me. So I think that is BS, or it's not something that I would want as a customer.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I do think there are use cases for inbound, outbound, but especially like if you think about like going up market or into the enterprise, if you've ever worked in the enterprise, like an agent is not going to get an enterprise deal done. We know that. No, it's a good question. Overhyped AI trend. I think I agree with you. I think I'll go with that one. I think that I tell people on my team, which is maybe a little overly direct, but I really believe it. AI is not coming for your jobs. I'm not going to replace you for an agent, but I will replace you with a RevOps person that knows AI really well if you don't learn it. So I think the overhyped trend of like, hey, you're just going to manage a bunch of agents and you're not going to have as many people working for you, especially in RevOps. Like, I don't think that's the reality at all.
100%. Cool. All right. Next question. Is RevOps transforming or dying over the next 2 years? Dying? How do you see your teams evolving in an agentic future? And maybe this kind of is exactly what you just said, Tessa.
Yeah, I actually think that RevOps is going to take more of a centralized role. Like we talked about, you need good process, you need good data in order to have a really good AI strategy. And I think that this is this incredible point in time where RevOps can be the orchestrator of that, and that we can really re-architect and orchestrate from a proactive, less reactive motion, how we execute in the go-to-market if done right. I think RevOps will transform, and RevOps teams that become AI first will become the most transformative. I think you will see RevOps teams die out that don't adopt AI.
Totally. And I think like the other thing too, to add on to that is the fact that these orchestrators or these RevOps teams who are able to leverage AI to like power these like really positive customer experiences and internal operations, I think the strategic thinking and the entrepreneurial mindset skills within RevOps professionals are going to be increasingly important because the actual execution might get easier. But I think being able to like focus on the right things and look at business impact in a really like smart way to be able to prioritize the right investments, that is going to be, I think, really important for RevOps teams to be strong in.
Yep, I couldn't agree more.
Cool. Maybe we can do one more here. Oh, this is really hard. Alicia, I feel like you're kind of playing roulette and it's like, what do we land on? Finish this sentence. In 18 months, RevOps will be... I don't know. What do you think, Tessa?
I think the orchestrator. I kind of go back to orchestration, but I think that in the age of AI, if your RevOps organization is steps up to do the job that needs to be done and becomes that centralized, really,
nervous system.
Yes, the nervous system of the go-to-market, then RevOps will become the orchestrators of go-to-market. This is the moment that we really will become the center of it all if we're able to execute the job to be done in front of us.
I love that. Mic drop.
Mic drop. I always say RevOps has for a very long time, it's always been a hard job, right? And I think operators have said for a very long time, sometimes it can be a thankless job. You're behind the scenes. And I think with, the age of AI, the speed of transformation that we're seeing, this is our opportunity to be the orchestrator, to be the center, to really drive impact maybe more centrally and in the front than ever before.
Couldn't agree more. Awesome. I think we're going to have Leah hop on, and the wonderful Leah is going to help us do Q&A and reviewing your questions.
Hey. Yep, just going to Kool-Aid man right in and excited to be here. Great conversation thus far. We have some really great questions in the chat. So if you can, throw them in the questions tab, upvote your favorites, and let's get started. So first up, how do you build the business case or define ROI to executive leadership when we talk about data cleanliness and importance of data architecture?
That's a good question.
I think that there's I would say, I think one of the easy ways or the things that come top of mind to me right away is what is the cost of bad data? So what are the things that you can't do if you don't have reliable data? What are the things that are becoming more time consuming, or the areas where you can't drive innovation, or where you're seeing the most time suck of productivity of your reps? And so I think if you are able, and again, this is kind of just off the cusp, but if you were to kind of say, okay, if a seller spends this much time making these many calls or sending these many emails, or this level of productivity will equate to this much return of investment or this much ACV, to kind of do that backwards math and then be able to show how, if you're not able to give them the data they need at the right time, or the signals that they need to drive action at the right time, or the ability to multi-thread or understand organizational design or the strategic priorities of their customer in a fast and efficient way, the amount of time that it would take them to do that same thing, if you had like a really clean virtual data layer, you can equate to like basically the business that you're leaving on the table. So if it takes a seller 40 hours to do something, but you need, but then if you're able to allow them to do it in 20 hours or maybe less, then all of a sudden they can be twice as productive, which is the cost of 2 headcount.
Love it.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think it's my role in demand gen. I'm always looking at like napkin math. I think the power of napkin math, when you can recommend a new process, or if we're building out an agent, we always say, hey, here's our napkin math. Here's how many hours we think we're going to save, or here's the impact. So definitely embrace that. All right, next question. What is the best way to measure how you improve efficiency across the GTM teams with all the automation and agents you put in place, and present that to execs?
Yeah, I think early on, we made the mistake of focusing too much on time saved. And I think that didn't, like, it was an okay place to start. But to Tessa's earlier point, if that can't be leveraged into really meaningful business impact, then it's not something that would be discussed in a board level conversation. And so I think you really have to think about that. And so, like, having a goal of, well, if we can save this much time, what does that mean? Well, that means that we can close more deals, or we can experiment with a new type of customer, or we can add to the books of business and convert more of our ideal customer profile. And how many do we think we can actually convert more of? So, like, taking it a step further into what is beyond efficiency, I think, is really important.
Yeah. I think that when you say that, Lindsay, the thing that comes to mind, and I go back to that study I mentioned that was saying like 95% of AI initiatives aren't driving anything incremental. I think you have to baseline and then try as much as you can to say, okay, here were, like, if you're looking at rep performance, for instance, like, here was their conversion, here's their velocity, here's their ASP, here's, how much, pipe gen, or, looking at their, even the velocity of their pipe progression, whatever that is, their conversion rates. I think there's something to be said that if you are able to say, okay, we gave them these things, this is what it was before, and then we did this, and be able to track about whether or not any of those things improved. I think the reality is, and, I don't have the answer for this, I don't think anyone completely has the answer for this, is we are doing a lot of things to support sales and giving them a lot of AI tools or building AI processes. And I think we're still waiting to see, okay, where are we going to see these metrics improve? And I think that that's something as RevOps professionals, we're still actively trying to figure out. But I think that's what you should be measuring.
Yeah, totally. It's hard. It's like a combination of, like, you not only need the tools, but you need the behavior change.
Yeah.
You need the adoption. And it's usually just not one solution that gets you the results that you need.
Yeah.
On that same vein, I'm going to go a little rogue. How do you handle failures with execs? We know that AI and kind of putting this stuff into process, not everything is going to be successful. So I'm curious to know how you both approach those conversations.
I always try and be just really transparent about what we're learning, because I think we're all, at the end of the day, carving our own path here. Like, this is new for a lot of teams. There aren't, like, playbooks about where to start. So just being really transparent and open about what we're learning, what is being adopted, how do we take that learning and leverage it into the next project, and setting really clear goals up front, and being upfront if you didn't achieve them, and bringing people sort of along in that journey, I think, is really important.
Yeah. And I don't really think any sort of workflow or something we input not working is a failure, to your point, Lindsay. These are all just learnings. And so it's like, okay, we're going to try and we're going to pivot. We're going to try, we're going to pivot, but you have to be experimental. And if you're afraid of, the word, failure is the word, or something not working, then you're just not going to innovate fast enough. And I think just establishing upfront with your executive team, like, we're going to go out and we're going to try a lot of things, and there are going to be things that aren't going to work, but we're going to monitor, we're going to catch it before the field does, and we're going to continue to, pivot. I think that's what you have to do in order to innovate. Move fast and break stuff.
Yeah.
Love it. All right. If a majority of your team is capable in that AI fluency, with only a couple being in that transformative, how do you recommend you get everyone into that transformative section? What do you think is the major reason for the fluency gap?
Well, that's a great question. One of the things that we do on our team, which is actually in the larger go-to-market org at Zapier, is we do these hack weeks where we basically give folks permission to experiment and build agents, build tools that maybe are outside of like the day-to-day or are like etched in stone roadmap, so to speak. And that's been a really, really great culture building and like learning initiative, because what we allow is like folks to join into these different AI projects with other folks on the team so that they can sort of like pair up and partner with people that they don't typically work with. And so that's been, I think, a good way to like expose the whole team into just partnering up with people who maybe are more deep into AI projects or have more knowledge. Tess, I'm curious for you all, how you...
Yeah, I mean, I think the unlock was getting everyone the ability, like creating the barrier to entry to use AI and giving everyone the ability to build. And then mandatory hackathons were really the only thing that ever has worked in any enablement I've ever done for my team, which is you're going to learn how to do this thing. You're going to come up with some sort of custom use case, and then you're going to present it back to judges that are executives in the go-to-market. Because there's an amount of innovation that comes with it. It's pushing them out of their comfort zone, and the visibility in front of people makes them really take it seriously and step up. Right, wrong, or indifferent, like I would probably come up with some sort of scale of how you measure what AI fluency means. Like that's very ambiguous. Like what is your expectation of your team? What is capable versus transformative? And actually build out a scale, right? And then having feedback conversations as part of their individual development plans of where they fall on that scale and what would be the steps that they would need to take and what it looks like to get to the next level. And then setting the expectation that that will be how you evaluate their performance, how you look at merit, how you look at bonuses. AI is not a nice to have, like it is now a basic competency that is that minimum expectation as any RevOps professional. And I think that you have to set that expectation with your team. You need to be clear what that means. And then you need to make sure that it's reflected in how you measure their performance as part of your annual reviews or however you assess that at your companies.
I love that. We had a really great conversation with Brandon, our Chief People Officer here. We'll add that to the resource link when we send out the recording to everybody, but it covers all of that, how to build that AI fluency chart. I highly recommend if you're a manager for a team, build it out for your team and have them be part of that, because yeah, it definitely, it's a mandatory skill at this point. All right. Next up, we have a question from Thomas. So if our CRM isn't going to be that source of truth, where do you suggest that source of truth be? Is it in one place? Is it several places? What kind of data governance platform do you recommend?
For us, it's our data warehouse. So everything sort of syncs back there.
I was going to say ZoomInfo, easy answer.
I love it. There you go, Thomas, from the experts themselves. All right. Here's kind of a fun one. So what are the AI apps or rookie mistakes to avoid?
Okay, I've got like a silly one, but it drives me absolutely insane. I think it's funny because everyone is using AI for writing now. Like I actually, there was a hot take that we didn't get to, which is like, what is the thing? I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was like about AI and what's not working. And it's this idea that like AI, everyone's using AI for writing. And so whenever I see the double dash in anything, like I stop reading. So I'm like, I don't really care to hear what LLM has to think about this. Like, if you're going to write something or you're going to write a memo or you're going to write a communication, or you're going to send a Slack, like tell your chat to take out the double dash because I immediately think you didn't write it. And it's not to say that like, I don't use, chat to write what I'm working on, but I just think it's an instant eyesore to know that you didn't author it yourself. So remove the double dash.
Yeah, I think that comes back to the human thing where it's like you still want to connect with humans. You want to know what the person thinks about something. Yeah, as someone who like loved an M dash before this, I'm like very frustrated that.
Me too. Me too. It's driving me nuts, but it's like, it's funny. Like, I think a lot of people are going through this evolution and you're moving away from meetings and into more memos. But now there's so many darn memos that are like circulating around because anyone can talk into their phone and write a memo in 5 minutes. Like, I don't want to read all these memos anymore because it's just stream of consciousness into your.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I wonder if that means that like the really good ideas that you're super passionate about, like those were the ones you would focus your memo on, right? And now there's just like
Write a memo. It's the pendulum always swings, right? We're going through a written first. Everyone reads memos. Before you know it, we're going to go, memos are just AI. We got to meet in person.
Yeah, totally.
My favorite is then I take those memos and then I throw it in my agent and it gives me a summary. And it's just AI on AI inception.
It's like, what should I think about this memo? And so it's all just agents talking to each other. It's not us anymore. Okay, I'm having a moment.
An existential crisis. Okay, let's flip this question. What's your like go-to favorite AI app?
Probably have to say our own products, right?
Yes, we know ZoomInfo, Zapier, but like, what's the thing you use day to day? I'll give you an example. I love Super Whisper.
Oh my God, that was what I was gonna say.
I'm so sorry. I knew it and I stole it for that very reason because I like to just talk into my phone and write AI memos.
Great.
I love Lovable. I love that I can just like tell it what to create. It gives you like the ability to like mock up and like show what you mean when you're talking about what you want like a product or design idea to look like.
I think for me, and I know like not a product plug, but I think as a RevOps person, there was so long that I would have to be reliant on like back office IT data teams and like even beginning of this year, like be begging for resources. And it would be, to me, it's like, I am only so technical that there were just things I couldn't do myself. And now the fact that I can go into, my own product, go-to-market studio and just like prompt and be like, this is the data that I'm looking for. And then have it connect all the data sources and actually pull something. Like it makes me want to cry because I can actually just do my job without like borrowing and stealing resources anymore.
Totally. Yeah. It makes like individuals so much more self-sufficient. I think
creative. You can be more creative, right? You can be so much more creative when you don't have the same barrier to entry when it comes to data anymore.
Totally.
I love it. It's a great equalizer, I think, for a lot of people. I think my design team would be a little bit, they tell me to back off a little bit when I'm building out images using AI. But all right, well, time has flown by. We are at the top of the hour. We didn't get to everybody's questions, but we will send out, like I said, a couple of answers, theme them up. But thank you so much, Lindsay, Tessa. It's just been a fantastic conversation. And shout out to Alicia, our start of the webinar host. Thank you guys so much for joining us today.
Oh, thanks. Super fun.
Thank you. Nice to see you, Lindsay.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you.
See you, everyone.
Bye.